Welcome back to The Great Compromise. I'm GOP Jim, and on today's niche episode, I want to talk about daylight saving time. And I may say daylight savings time, so just bear with me here. Personally, I'm not a fan of changing the clocks, and every year it gets a little harder to bounce back from the time change. Maybe I'm just getting old, or maybe it's daylight saving time that's the problem. Either way, I wanted to learn more about why it started and why we continue to do it. Because I can't think of a good reason to keep falling back into a useless tradition. So let's just spring forward into the episode. We all know that twice a year we have to change the clocks, unless you live in Arizona or Hawaii. But do you know why we do it? I thought I did before researching for this episode. I had heard that we did it for the farmers, so they could get extra sunlight. Sometimes I heard it was for the kids, so they weren't out waiting for the school bus in the dark. But neither of those are the real reason. Daylight saving time started in Germany in 1916 as a wartime effort to save fuel. Many European countries followed their lead, and even America too. We passed the Standard Time Act of 1918 as a measure to save resources for the war, and to extend the working day. This was repealed and repassed more than a few times over the years, but it led to the people getting used to the time changes. It was in 1966 that the Uniform Time Act established a set date for daylight saving time, with only 2 states exempt, Arizona and Hawaii. Now obviously, World War I is long over, so why are we still doing the time changes? Well, that's the debate. I think the saving energy argument is a bunch of bull in the modern age. According to the Energy Department's 2008 study, we know that the extra 4 weeks of daylight saving time saved about 0.5% in total electricity per day. Now that may add up to be more, but I don't buy that as the sole reason to continue with the time change. And frankly, it could easily be canceled out by more people turning up the heat in the morning since it's colder then. Well, daylight saving supporters have another argument. Apparently, it helps reduce crime. According to researchers at the Brookings Institution, when DST begins in the spring, robbery rates for the entire day fall an average of 7%, with a much larger 27% drop in the evening hour that gains some extra sunlight. Most street crimes occur in the evening around common commuting hours of 5 to 8 p.m., and more ambient light during typical high crime hours makes it easier for victims and passersby to see potential threats. Now, at face value, that sounds nice. Less crime for the cost of springing ahead an hour. But what happens with crime rates when daylight saving ends? Well, it increases by 3%. It's possible these changes in the crime rate have nothing to do with the extra light, or the lack thereof. It's possible these changes happen when people lose or gain sleep. In a study by the University of Pennsylvania, researchers analyzed crime data from New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, and Philadelphia from 2001 through 2014. They compared assault rates on the Monday immediately following daylight saving time to the Monday a week later. Then, they repeated this when clocks returned to standard time in the fall. In the spring, the day after we move into daylight saving time, there are more car accidents, greater stock market losses, more workplace injury, reduced test scores, and higher suicide rates, senior study author Greg Ridgway said in a statement. But a loss of sleep didn't have the same effect on crime rates. This may be because people are just too groggy to act on their aggression after losing that hour of sleep in the spring. Are we slightly reducing crime by depriving people of sleep? Maybe. Is it worth continuing? Not as far as I'm concerned. I want my sleep too. And a small drop in crime isn't really worth the extra car accidents and injuries that happen from the lack of sleep. So who really stands to benefit from daylight saving time staying how it is now? Not the average American. 63% of Americans would support eliminating the time shift in favor of a fixed year-round time. And unlike who I thought stood to benefit the most from the time change, farmers are vocal about being against it. It was the agriculture industry who lobbied against daylight saving time in 1918. The time change is just a nuisance for farmers who need to follow the sun. Moving the clocks didn't change when the sun dried the dew on crops waiting to be harvested, and the cow accustomed to a 5 a.m. feeding didn't care about the time change. Farmers had to balance these duties while trying to be at the market an hour earlier to sell their crops. So again, who does DST benefit? We need to follow the money. It's been the gas companies who stand to make money, of course. They have been lobbying for daylight savings time. They seem to think that more sunlight means more leisure driving, and that means more money. So why should we keep daylight saving time around? Just so the gas companies can gouge us more? No, I don't believe there's a good reason in the modern age to have a time change. And for once, the Senate actually agreed on that. In March of 2022, the U.S. Senate unanimously approved a bill that would make DST the permanent time in this country. All it needs now is to pass the House and for the president to sign it. If you are sick of changing the clocks or being groggy every year, write your congressman and tell them you want them to pass the Sunshine Protection Act. I know I will. Thank you all for listening to the Great Compromise podcast. Once again, find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and it means a lot for you all to listen and subscribe. We appreciate it. We will be back with a new episode with Victoria very soon.